They're immoral, dirty places that promote promiscuity and drug use, full of rent boys and disease. These are just some of the common negative stereotypes surrounding one of my very favorite places. Today, we peel back the layers for a deep dive into the fascinating world of the bathhouse to uncover what really goes on behind closed doors. I'm Patrick Marano, and this is Queerly Us. Joining me today is a former board member of the Test Positive Aware Network, former vice chair and current board member of the North American Bathhouse Association, and the general manager of Steamworks Chicago, Nirmalpal Sachdev. Who I'm going to call Nirm.
That works.
Right?
Absolutely.
You gave me the green light to call you Nirm. That is your...
It works. Norm's fine. Yep. Like Norm with an I. That works well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, what is your background?
I am Indian, 100%.
Oh.
I'm first generation. My parents immigrated here.
They did. And then was it to Chicago or did you relocate there?
No. I relocated here. They immigrated to the West Coast. So my immediate family was on the West Coast, outside of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. So you got to Chicago because of work.
That's right.
Okay, so let's jump right in with that then. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about, because I'm always fascinated. I spoke with Brian Short from Steamworks Toronto, and he does the other one. Is it Seattle as well. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about his story and stuff, and I always find it fascinating how people get their start in a business like this. So maybe you can tell a little bit about where it began for you.
Oh, geez. Well, we're going to go all the way back. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. We're all the way back to 2007. I was working at the Haight-Ashbury Clinic in San Francisco for 5 years. And that's a public health clinic, the oldest public health clinic actually in the nation. Brian Short, believe it or not, when he was working in a larger capacity, he asked me to be the director of health services, which is their philanthropic arm of Steamworks, coordinating all their prevention and outreach and philanthropic efforts, as well as some of the fundraising, some of the arms that require money funding for any kind of sexual health surveys and that kind of thing. And we have that at every site. So I was going from site to site, coordinating all the prevention and outreach for Steamworks at all the 5 locations, and working with the various Department of Public Health and province health departments on various sexual health surveys inside the club and with our customers and grants and that kind of thing. So that's sort of how I started with the company, to do that. But my passion is definitely sexual health prevention and advocacy for the LGBTQI community.
Well, you kind of jumped ahead here because I absolutely wanted to talk about sexual health. And it's not ironic. Well, I guess it's ironic in the sense that you started in that field, and I guess that they sort of like blend together, that in the bathhouse, because a lot of comments that I get on my YouTube channel are the fact that, bathhouses, just spread disease. That's the best place to, I don't want to go because I don't want to get AIDS. Like, you just walk in a bathhouse and you get full-blown AIDS. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's the ignorance is so when I hear you speak like that, I'm like, see what it's really like? So when you were working for the sexual health, were you also working for the bathhouse? It was for the bathhouse or for the Haight-Ashbury?
No. So they recruited me from the Haight-Ashbury. My background is corporate sales as well, and I went sort of back to school and got a degree in health and human services so that I could work specifically with nonprofits. And so Steamworks was sort of like, hey, you've got a sales background, you've got somewhat of a leadership background. Why don't you come to us and be this director of health information and education programs, and coordinate all this and for all the various sites. So I travel, et cetera, et cetera. It's how I learn firsthand that Canada is a different country. I think we talked about that before. That was exactly how I learned that. Imposing FYI to all of your listeners, imposing American values on Canadians is dumb, stupid, and will not get you anywhere. So it's a different country, associate it that way, and that's the way to start your relationship when you get off the plane or get out of your car when you first get into Canada. Assume it's a different country, even if McDonald's is spelled the same way.
Well, I'll tell you a secret. Most of my viewers are from the States anyway. But absolutely true. And like there's nothing, I wouldn't call it a love-hate relationship, but I mean we're so together with you. I mean, it's so there's no disconnecting the two. I mean, we grew up together. We're kind of like
Mhm.
siblings that grew up together. Maybe not in the
Correct.
same house, but in the same backyard. So, I mean, there's
Correct.
nothing closer, than an American and a Canadian for sure. But
100%.
respectful of differences, absolutely.
100%. It's a different culture,
Yeah.
and that is something I learned when I was director of health services,
Mm,
um, going to our Vancouver club and our Toronto club, and then my journey with Steamworks then continued as they wanted to kind of merge the philanthropic side with the general manager side and sort of integrate the two. There was a disconnect with various aid service organizations, community business organizations, various university research groups, and them coordinating with somebody outside of the local site manager. And
mm,
so me, and then since I was based in our corporate office in San Francisco, it
mm.
was difficult for them to coordinate with the various managers on things as we expanded the position and did more work. And so the company sort of decided to integrate the health arm with the management arm and say, look, we want that to be more of a marriage of the two rather
Okay.
than you being a separate entity, so that the manager on duty or the GM could actually answer questions and be more engaged in that philanthropic side that they are so passionate about. So I sort of rewrote that kind of mindset position, and they kind of gave me a lot of latitude and independence with that, and so I brought that to the table. And I think a lot of the managers now are more integrated with the public health arm and the philanthropic arm as well as the business side. So I'm glad to have been a part of some of that.
Absolutely. I'm going to call you Daddy Nirm.
I get that. Daddy Nirm works for it.
I love it.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
I just love the misconceptions that people have, and then the reality behind it, because they could not be more wrong. In my experience,
Hmm.
places like Bathhouse is the same here in Toronto. It's they were on the front line of sexual health. They have people in there from the AIDS Committee of Toronto, answering questions and handing out information and handing out supplies and stuff like that. So I love the
Props to
idea. What's that?
props to ACT. Love you,
Yeah.
AIDS Committee. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yeah, yeah, they're amazing. Um,
They're
I want to ask you, because there's probably lots of different facets to your job, lots of different things you do in a day. So, what is the coolest part of your job, or what do you enjoy most about your job as general manager?
funny, actually. What do I enjoy most about my job? Now, I can answer that one of two ways. I can answer
Okay.
that in a sexual kind of way,
Uh
where
huh.
my cheek has never, gone down because I get to walk outside and I see a guy in towel, and that's really what a lot of my friends say. It's
Yeah.
like, do you work at a bathhouse, so all you do is towels, or all you do is see guys in towels? And yeah, that can be fun, and there is some enjoyment to that. Much like if you were working at any gym, you get to see a hot, sweaty guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yet I think one of the best parts of my job is that I get to mold I get to help shape people that work with me and that work for me, and
Hmm.
hopefully help them develop into better people and give them a reason to believe in their job. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is using our power and privilege to give back if we can in any way, shape, or form. For example, we did a fundraiser for Ukraine at the onset of the violence and the war with Russia,
Wow.
because one of our top people, actually our CIO, Chief Information Officer, he is actually Ukrainian descent, and so
Oh wow.
he wanted to do something. So we did a fundraiser for Ukraine. So
Mm-hmm.
one of my goals in doing what I do, I think one of my favorite goals. Oh, Alfredo, I'm in a meeting.
Oh
Here, I'm
hey,
going.
Alfredo.
That's my facilities manager. Is
He just wanted to be on camera. Let's be
No, no,
honest.
no, no. He's yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a revolving door like that. Is to give them a reason to feel good about what they do.
Mm,
And that's sort of one of my favorite things about what I do, is that I get to find ways to use our power and privilege to give back and help the people that work here feel like they make a difference. And that's
mm-hmm.
one of my personal goals and something I'm very passionate about and happy about. So I'd say on a personal note, other than just the towels and the guys and the sexy dicks and all that,
Yeah.
it's really about empowering my staff and, finding new leaders out of them and helping to mold them into the people they want to be.
Aw, that was very well-rounded answer. This from both points of view. But talking about the towel thing, though, I mean, and tell me if I'm
Sure.
wrong, because I'm
Oh,
sure.
you want the dirty answer? Okay, okay, I gotcha.
Well, no, no, no. It's just that resonated something with me because I
Sure.
used when I was a porn star living in Los Angeles. And
Woo!
people,
Oh
yes, well,
my!
so you didn't know. Okay,
Oh no, I did not.
ta-da.
Ah.
And so naked bodies all the time, naked, naked,
Uh-huh.
naked all the time, everywhere, right? And then people are like, "Oh my God, you must always be da 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 da." But it's like when you see it all the time, it becomes your job. Also, of course, it's nice. Yes, I'm having sex with hot guys. Yeah, okay, of course, it's fun.
Mhm.
But it's not this crazy orgy all the time where it's just like you're always in it because it is work and you're getting a job done and you have a goal and you need to do your thing. So that's probably the same with you, I'm assuming, is that yes, there's hot guys around. I love seeing it and stuff, but I'm also at work and it's like I see it all the time, a little bit of desensitized to it.
Well, I mean, I think people are always kind of sad when they come in the office for the first time. They're like, I really want to tour, and they want to see everything and the one-eyed monsters, and they want to see all that stuff, which is
Yeah.
totally fine. You know what I mean? But then they come in my office, and it's an office, and they're like, oh, there's cameras and there's files, and it's like, yeah,
Right. There's
it's
paperwork.
it's
Oh,
a $4 million plus business
yeah.
annual. So yes, somebody has to make sure it works.
Yeah.
But they're also, so it's funny, but it's also, I don't become desensitized to the people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of important reasons why bathhouses exist, and there's a lot of important reasons why we should exist.
Hmm.
uh and people don't always
Absolutely.
recognize those, and I wish they sometimes did. For example, if you are a person who is recovering from alcohol addiction, and you want to meet people and you are going back out there as a recovering alcoholic. I have met plenty of my customers who are recovering alcoholics who don't want to go to bars to meet guys,
Mm,
so they come here.
yeah.
And there's also the conversation of when you're recovering from any substance and you have to start engaging in sexual habits again
Hmm.
without that substance.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Most MSM, gay men, cis gay men, um, you know, we revolve most of our life around sex, drugs, and alcohol, and
Yeah.
so that becomes sort of our pattern for a lot of
Yeah.
us. And without the alcohol, for a lot of people, that's not how they meet people, et cetera, or the apps, et cetera. Now, you're not everybody's going to want to tell somebody, ooh, you're super hot. By the way, I am in AA. Well, that's a downer.
Hmm.
So why not go somewhere where that is something you don't have to tell somebody right away, where
Right.
you can engage in that type of behavior at your own pace? And so
Right.
that's there's a myriad of reasons. I mean, you insert that logic and that rationale to people who are trans men, who are transitioning, who haven't had top surgery, who
Hmm.
are 100% safe and welcome here, and who need to negotiate themselves if they are a trans man and they're into men. How do they negotiate sex as a trans man in a safe space without alcohol? If
Hmm.
you are phobic, I mean, there's a lot of people who are bisexual. There are very few options for that kind of negotiation in sexual habit, sexual prowess, behavior, out in our sphere. They don't
Yeah.
exist, and so other than online,
Hmm.
and you can be anybody when you're here at your own
Yeah.
pace and sort of get that sort of id taken care of, and I think that's important to have. And so when people kind of knock what we do, to some extent, I think that they're kind of leaving out some of the important aspects of societies, of our cultures, moving forward when it comes to sexual health, and
Yeah.
we're a big part of that. And I could go on and on, but you don't want to hear
No, well,
it.
I probably do because that's what this podcast is about. But I want to jump in and say, like, yeah, thank
Sure.
you so much for saying that because I feel like people that judge bathhouses a lot of times come from a place of privilege in the sense that they fit into the bar scene. They're good with the drinking and the occasional drugs and stuff like that. Like they're okay with that. They're, like you said, cisgendered guys, the gay guys and stuff. They fit into that mold or that stereotype of like I'm the gay guy who goes out and parties and finds sex and whatever. That's not everybody's story. And then even with the apps, you know, a lot of times maybe somebody doesn't have the resources to have the phone or to have the apps, or they don't have a place to go. You know, who's to say, like, I don't know what the rent and the mortgages are like in Chicago, but in Toronto, if you live alone, you're probably rich because nobody can afford it. So getting your own space is that, and so bathhouses are important for that as well, you know, creating that space. So
100%.
yeah,
Beyond the destination of like Mpox vaccines, like we did last year. I mean, everybody if you want to make all kinds of comments until you need a vaccine. And we were the only house in the nation to actually partner in the United States, to actually partner with our local Department of Public Health,
yeah,
and have vaccines being administered on site.
yeah,
Steamworks Berkeley did that, but Steamworks Chicago was directly responsible, and we had direct control over vaccine distribution and dissemination.
yeah.
So I was able to vaccinate over 200 LGBT bar business employees at the beginning or onset of the Mpox, mini pandemic, under the radar, because the city said, if you can do this, then we'll trust you with more vaccine distribution and control. And, we were the perfect vehicle for getting that out there. But, that's something that couldn't have happened without us.
Yeah.
We did that on our own, and it was because we're connected to the community. It's because we could connect directly with sex workers. So when an outbreak like that happens, who are you going to go to that's going to have a direct link to potentially sex workers, or to adult performers, or to, big whores and pigs and dirty ass guys who have to have sex all the time.
Yes.
You're dirty
Yeah.
sex boys who are like, I only want pretty boys. That's fine. Yeah, I only want muscle daddies. Well,
Yeah.
we know who you are because
Yeah.
you've probably done shows for us, and your friends are probably doing shows for us.
Yeah.
But it's not every bar that can get in contact with those people who are potentially most at risk for this.
Right.
And yet we can. And so we basically told the city of Chicago, the only way we're going to do this vaccine distribution for Mpox is if we have some control over how it's distributed, and we're able to vaccinate the bar business community first. So that wasn't something the city said. We told them this was how we're going to do this. If you don't want to do it this way, that's not how we're going to do it. And they agreed. And we agreed that that was the most important thing. Is we believe the bar business staff were frontline workers. And if someone was taking care of them first, they would become infected, and then retail would suffer. And, we just opened up from COVID, et cetera. So, we do provide services beyond just what the towels and the dicks and all that would expect. And in, crisis situations like Mpox last year, we stepped up. Because we could find the people most at risk faster than, the red tape through maybe city bureaucracies could. And we did. We did our fair show, over 2,500. And that's important. And almost like 100% of them were inside the club, coordinated directly through us. And I was pretty proud that we were able to minimize that. And now we're working with the city of Chicago on outbreak preparedness exercises. They hired somebody, and they've asked us to help them with that. And so we haven't started that yet, but that was pretty exciting to be approached to discuss outbreak preparedness for the LGBTQI community and consult with that, because again, that's a bathhouse. That's what we do. So it's more than just what you might think. So I'm trying to kind of give it a larger picture rather than just a micro, which you might just see dicks and asses. But I think there's a larger component that sometimes people miss. We do fit right into.
That's my whole platform. It's like on my YouTube channel, my playlist, Bathhouse Betty, and there are some of my most popular videos, and it's just, highlighting that it's so much more. In Toronto did the same thing with the Mpox vaccine, and I was so impressed by that. And I thought, talk about, and like with you, talk about like, oh, here's a situation, it sucks. But instead of pointing fingers or blaming or getting defensive and stuff, just being like, hey, we can do something about this. And then taking it into your own hands, the solution, finding a solution, or at least helping, you know what I mean? And not like turning away or getting scared or blaming somebody or, oh God. So
we learned from them, 100%. People were desperate. People were desperate for vaccines. People were desperate for answers, and they were so exhausted. And any
after
kind
COVID,
of
right? Like,
Right. Any kind of solution you can bring. And my pitch to the city was, if you let us vaccinate the bar business community, they will be the ambassadors that will tell everybody this thing didn't bother me. It's no big deal. Go get the shot. And so if you're
Yeah,
going to ask people to be the best ambassadors for a vaccine when they're, got vaccine fatigue,
yeah,
you got to get people that they're going to be in front of during that summer, which is bartenders.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
going to be in front of those people. If those are the
yeah,
advocates that you have saying, this is fine, don't worry about it, it's just a shot, they're more likely to do it.
yeah.
So yeah, and those are the people that are the ambassadors. And so, we use them, and, we help them feel safer, and, kept their mental health in check to some extent. It was important, because we're all one community at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Daddy Nirm, what is the hardest part of your job?
Hmm. Hardest part of my job. That's a tough one. It's the hardest part of my job. I can answer that in a couple different ways.
Okay.
Well, it depends. Let's see. When it comes to live shows, the hardest part of my job is dealing with somebody who didn't take their shot to become plastic dick when they should have, or they didn't take their Viagra or whatever. That part is hard.
Okay.
Uh, it's
So it's
the
like it's a flaccid penis during
yeah, yeah, yeah.
a live
They're doing
show?
so. Absolutely. That's a hard part of that's a hard part of the job. Absolutely.
Yes.
A hard part of the job is also people that feel the need to be really rude to the front desk people and
Mm,
call people really derogatory names
yes.
and say really racist things because we won't let them in with whatever's in their bag. And
Hmm.
so, resorting to that is also really, really hard. Um, uh, it's the hardest. It's really hard. The stigma is not a big deal to me. It doesn't bother me as much. Some of what makes me frustrated, I think, is older gays that think that they're still 20 years old, and they try to have fun like they're 20 years old. And
Oh,
it's dangerous when to start, to keep doing some of those things at an older age. It's
okay.
going to have a
Like poppers and
dangerous.
Viagra and
Not
stuff?
even that, it's everything. It's everything,
Yeah.
I don't know if crystal meth or all those kinds of drugs and
Oh, yeah.
GHB is something,
Oop.
you want to keep doing in your 50s and 60s, that's fine. Don't do it
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
For no other reason that you understand that kind of stuff can have serious effects on yourself, and just be mindful of what you're doing at a certain age. And like, we're
Hmm.
not we're not kids anymore. I'm 50, and I know that I'm not gonna be mixing all kinds of powders and stuff, because I'm like, I can't, man, I'm tired.
Hey, after like going out on a one night on a weekend and drinking, like it takes me 3 days to recover, and I didn't even drink that much. Like
Well,
what?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You just got to be mindful of that. So I'd say one of the hardest things is trying to see some people try to still fit in with a crowd or a mindset or a type of living when it comes to sexual behaviors and stuff that could be dangerous for them in the long term,
Hmm.
because they're so desperate to still fit in.
Yeah.
uh and so, yeah, that sometimes can be hard because I see such a cross section of people coming in here. And yeah, you end up being like a counselor to some extent, talking to people about their sexual health, where they are on the Kinsey scale, whether or not they're bisexual, how they feel
Hmm.
about their bisexuality, how they approach sexuality here. Don't hate yourself for being, sexual and all that. So yeah, there's a variety of things I could talk about.
For sure, I totally relate to that because again, on my channel, all the comments that I get, I feel like half the time I'm being a therapist and I'm talking to people. I'm looking for my first time. I want to go, or
Right.
oh, I have this and that. A lot of people are open-minded and they just have a lot of questions and stuff, but a lot of people aren't. And it's interesting to see the comments from gay men that are so negative, and then the comments from self-professed straight guys that are like, "Hey, I'm just a straight bro. I don't know how I ended up here, but I think a bathhouse is a fascinating. Like, I love you guys are so lucky." Blah blah. Like, it's fascinating, and I love getting those comments because it's so the open-minded, just watching the content without judgment and just being like, "Oh, that exists. That's for them. That's amazing. I'm glad
100%.
for you." Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of anger out there from some of the younger or older gays about one thing or another. They're all going to bitch about something or other. What I think that they have every right to bitch about is inclusivity, and
Hmm.
where our industry, I think, needs to move when it comes to inclusivity and getting
Right.
closer. And some of the bathhouses are a lot better at that than others.
Mm.
And it's convincing some of the um, I would say the Gen X and baby boomer owners that integration of trans women or trans people and all that is quite frankly where you need to be, because the
Yeah.
Gen Z is very inclusive. Gen
Yeah.
Z is all about inclusivity.
Yeah.
So if you aren't even trying to be inclusive, you are missing a
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
very sexually active, very sexually promiscuous, very sexually open demographic. The new
Hmm.
generation, Gen Z, whoa, man, they are a horny bunch.
And they
And
don't care.
they don't care. They
Yeah.
don't care. And they're not into drugs. From my understanding, a lot of Gen Z, I mean, they're fisting with just poppers. They're like, I don't need any of that crap. They're like, I will
Wow.
put a whole hand up my ass without anything else but poppers, because
Yeah.
it's not really in their mind. At least I'm not going to generalize, but my experience with fisting parties here and Gen Z, in my experience, which is quite a lot. So
Yeah.
let's speak from the truth.
Okay.
When I speak
Yeah.
about people getting fisted at anywhere,
Yeah.
I'm going to speak to your listeners and say I probably have more experience watching people of different ages getting fisted than most of you.
Yep.
As
And
it
me for
happens,
sure. Yep.
there's literally going to be a fisting party here tomorrow night with the Men of Mafia
Yeah.
organization, Mid-American Fists in Action. That's a real thing. But I see that, and because we don't allow drugs in there, it's true. We don't allow drugs in here or anything
Yeah.
like that. And but the younger guys are not into it at all. They're really not, and they love older guys. The Gen Zs, woo,
They're just
25,
so much more open than we were, right?
and they're tough.
We were like a lot more binary. Drugs were a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But also we grew up in a different time. I feel like, being gay
80s.
wasn't really accepted when I was young, like
HIV AIDS too. We grew up with it. I
and
grew up with
AIDS.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up with AIDS.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 50 years old, which some people are like, what? But yeah, back in the day of that, yeah, that's what people had. So my generation, Generation X, that's getting older, is something that when I was Gen X didn't see. That population. A lot of it died out, and so we're
Yeah,
the
that's
first
true.
big generation of 50 plus that has a large populace, so that these younger guys can look at a lot more daddies. And
Yeah.
again, these younger guys have no qualms about fucking daddies twice their age and
Hmm.
being sexually promiscuous, and a lot of them aren't bottoms, they're tops. And there's the millennials in the middle that kind of got a little annoyed, like, wait a second, because, well, maybe you're a little uptight, because Gen Z is just like, yeah, man, open it all up, let's do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So
This
I
is
give
great. I'm
props.
booking my flight to Chicago as we speak. What are you doing to me? Do you know, actually, I've never been to Steamworks Chicago, which is weird because I've been to Chicago a bunch of times, including for the Grabby Awards.
Shame,
So,
shame,
right?
shame,
So
shame.
bizarre.
We are
So,
the Barneys. We are the Barneys of bathhouses. Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. Oh my God, I love Steamworks. So, yeah, it'll have to be on my next on
We are
my next.
4 floors, and we are the flagship. It's beautiful, 4 floors, almost 25,000 square feet. Huge hot tub, 27-person, double entrance steam room. Everybody loves when they come here. We do all kinds of fun cookie stuff. But again, one of my models for business here is conscious consumerism. I'm a big fan of that, and that's how I. That's one of my leadership brands, is just conscious consumerism. If you give back, if you're a part of the community, if people see you with the soul, you're more likely for people to want to come in, and that's sort of how I feel. Like, if you are doing good for the community, then
Mm,
people resonate with wanting to go to your business. And I think that's how a lot of the new generation is. It's not
yeah.
just saying you're kind to trees, it's actually doing something about it. And if they can see that, they're more likely to say, yeah, we appreciate that. And so,
Especially like you're saying, Gen Z.
100%. So yeah.
The newer generation for sure. So talking about Gen Z, like for me, that's a fascinating piece of the puzzle because it really helps hold a mirror up to my face. Because as open as I feel that I am, I'm still stuck in a few binary ways of thinking. Like there's guys and girls, and when I grew up, there was men and women, and then you were gay, which meant I was a boy and I liked boys, and that was it. Like, you know what I mean? It's very so the pronouns and all of this stuff is all stuff that I have to learn, obviously, and I did not grow up with, but that come naturally to people like that. We touched on a little bit about trans men, trans women. At Steamworks Chicago specifically, is it open to everybody, or how
Yes,
does
and
it work? Yeah.
well, so we have trans men are welcome anytime, and we have trans men party nights on certain nights. For example, the third Monday of every month is TM for M, Trans Men for Men.
Okay.
And we
Oh.
partnered with an organization in San Francisco called tm4m.org
Mm.
originally. It sent us some information about negotiating sex with a trans man and flyers and pamphlets, which we originally handed out during at the onset of the party, just to give people information about having sex with a trans man and the do's and don'ts, as it were, from that organization. So that's sort of how I wanted
Mm.
to start that party, with an education component.
Yeah.
And
I
I
love that.
wanted to expand it to trans women as well. And so, we have a trans women night on the fourth Monday, and that's how we're approaching it at this location. We're taking a very slow approach to
Yeah.
that before, and some other places geographically, like say our Berkeley location, they have a what they call a gender fuck night where anybody can come. That's not something I'm prepared to do yet,
Hmm.
because I don't know if I trust our close proximity to Wrigleyville, which is a predominantly straight bar district that has the Wrigley Stadium down the street, and I am not too keen on any kind of um, problematic outcomes with
Of course.
inappropriate contact with cis women, and I don't want to deal with that, and I don't want to have anything like that, and I don't want to take the chance that this safe place for so many MSM could be taken away because we tried to be more inclusive and it ended up backfiring.
Yeah.
So I think every region and every place is different, and as it pertains to the trans community, trans men are absolutely welcome here anytime, regardless of their gender marker. And trans women, we're bringing in obviously for our trans women night, and it's growing,
Yeah.
and it's growing. And I think that having it sort of on a Monday and then continuing to have it is something that is building for trans people in general. And you've got to take a stand, much like we just recently did when we raised $20,000 for the ACLU Drag Defense Fund.
Yeah.
We made our policies as it pertains to trans people or trans inclusivity inside the club. That's completely separate from how we feel as a community
Yeah.
about protecting the trans community.
Of
And
course. Right.
attack on one is attack on all of us. And
Yeah.
our Steamworks as a whole wanted to do something because we believe drag is art, and the trans community that are a part of drag are artists, and we need to support
Hmm.
them. So there's definitely a separation. Like, we know that's something important. So that's why we wanted to raise money for such an important cause. And so
That's
we're
amazing.
working on a check presentation for the ACLU Drag Defense Fund, because in total, our $20,000 donation, we believe, is like the highest or most that any LGBTI business in Chicago raised
Ever.
for the defense fund, or for the Drag Defense Fund, in Chicago.
Congratulations. Well, no, that's
Yeah,
great. That's
thank
yeah.
you. Thank
That's a
you.
huge
Very
thing.
excited. Pretty
Uh,
stoked about it, actually.
and like you said, the way that we feel about our trans brothers and sisters is not the same. It doesn't have the same, fine footwork that you need to do when you're implementing a night at a club like Steamworks, where there's a lot more moving parts now, and evolution takes time. Also,
And
it's
education.
and
And education.
education. Yeah.
100%. It's
Yeah.
100% true. When it comes to when the trans community, when trans men were coming in here, we've had informationals with trans people here talking about how to negotiate a bathhouse as a trans man. And again, we go back to that same conversation we had about people that are in AA or people that are negotiating it being different. If you are a trans man and you are into men and you haven't had top surgery, you are, there's not really many places for you to go to explore that.
Of course.
And you want to feel like, this is who I am, this is my scan, this is who I am. So my team are very well trained, I believe. If a trans man feels violated or if he feels disrespected by any of the customers in here, we basically will kick that other person out.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. We don't want our trans community, the trans men here, at least, to feel like they are being talked down to, or that anybody who people negotiate once they drop their towel. Someone drops their towel, and a
Yeah.
trans man may look different than, say, a cis gay man, but that doesn't mean they're any less of a man. And if you
Yeah.
treat them
Of course.
differently, you are potentially harming them mental health wise. You are probably further pushing them into an isolation,
Yeah.
sense of isolation and sadness, and we don't want any of that. And so it is not just educating my staff; it's also educating the community, because it's kind of sad. It's not. It's there is a separation of I believe millennials. A large portion of this are millennials who don't necessarily see trans people as associated with the LGBT. You know, especially well, these not just, I say not just millennials, but Gen X too.
Yeah.
Um,
Millennials onwards or backwards.
cis gay men who
Yeah.
are of cis gay men who work for Amazon, that may work for, that are affluent to some extent. They're like, we've got marriage, we don't need to see,
Mm,
we don't care so much about what happens to trans people, so to speak. What was the point? And that is, I love your dog.
thank you.
I actually,
He's been bugging me to he's pick me up, pick me up.
I have two at home.
Oh,
But anyway, yeah. So really, that sense of like, we don't care about them,
yeah.
and why are we advocating for them? We've got our marriage,
Right.
and that is some of the mindset that people have to face being trans. So not only are they facing the bombardment of bills and just
Yeah.
hate, it's also from our own community, who's just doesn't is a disconnect with their struggle, which is absolutely ours.
Yeah.
Um, if I could go back,
Yeah.
to one of the questions you asked me before, what are one of the hardest things I have to deal with here?
Oh, you thought of a good one.
I think I thought of one that makes more sense, and that
Okay.
is the anger post-pandemic. A
Okay.
lot of people have come out of the pandemic very angry
Mm-hmm.
and very frustrated. And there is a real deep-seated anger that I believe a lot of people had to face with their own mental health, face with their own, recovery, and with the world stopping, and then suddenly having to, deal with whatever was in their mind that they kind of push aside every day as they go to work.
Mm.
And all of that, the changing of the world, etc., has produced some very angry people. And I don't just mean the Karens, and I don't just mean the Kendras, and I don't just mean, because gay people are, as we are, there are plenty of
Yeah,
Kendras
of
out there.
course.
But the
I've never heard
anger,
that term before, but yes, I like
yeah,
it.
the Kendras,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
The quick to anger is one of the hardest things we've had to deal with here. Is
Yeah.
people now more than ever since we've come back from the pandemic just are so quick to just say the most awful things
Yeah.
to people,
Yeah.
especially in the service industry, or just treat them like shit.
Yeah.
And it has been so difficult. I mean, we prioritize our mental health here, I believe. And I always ask my staff consistently, how are you connected to a provider? I ask my senior team at our weekly meetings, the first thing we talk about is staff wellness, because this stuff is affecting. It's not just the people coming in that have been affected. It's the retail industry that's been shut down and then put back in service.
Yeah.
And so we have had to deal with that, and people feel the need, at my experience, our experience, to just say the most inappropriate, angry, really racist and homophobic, and this is from the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And it is immediate. And so yeah, I would say that's one of the hardest things I deal with now is looking at other people's mental health and trying to say, look, this may not have anything to do with us. You may be
For
very
sure.
stressed out, but there's no reason to take it out on us,
Yeah.
because you cannot be let in because you're too drunk to come in, or
Right.
because something is wrong with you per se, or there was a problem last time you were here. The quickness to anger is so much more now than it ever has been.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really sad. And it's really unfortunate, because it's definitely very, very, it's prevailing. It's huge in the gay community, more so than I had seen in the past. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, that struggle is real.
Yeah. And it wasn't helped by, politics and the news and just divisiveness and just
Right.
everybody. We all have PTSD from that time. I know I do. I'm still recovering from COVID, that whole thing. And yeah, for sure. I've noticed that too. Not only, you're speaking from the Bathhouse experience, but I'm noticing online too. People are quick to comment. They're quick to go for the jugular. The niceties are gone. Nobody
Gone.
wants, you know, so it's tough to get to. So I can see in a space like yours that would be
Mhm.
amplified even,
To
you know.
quote one of my favorite shows, South Park, you are not Yelping by
Yeah,
putting all these events online. You're not
yeah.
helping, doing anything good. All you're doing is
No,
a label and being angry and calling people out. And it just is this outlet that
yeah,
people find necessary to just kind of vilify people and make them feel like shit.
yeah,
And yeah, it's not helpful at all. And so, that part is kind of sad. But
yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things.
Okay,
Definitely.
good
Make
answer. I'm
yeah.
glad you thought of that one. What are that we talked about some of the trans nights. We talked about you have bear night.
Mm.
What other theme nights do you have at
God.
Steamworks?
Well, we have boys' night,
Yeah,
which is every Thursday. That's from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. where boys 18 to 25 get to come in for free. And believe it or not, the guys that come into that are not just, the younger hot Gen Zs, but also we get a
yeah.
lot of guys from the South Side. We get a lot of guys from the West Side who are Latin MSM. They are, African American, Black MSM, who are coming in because they're either not out where they are,
Okay.
um, or they don't have any other outlets where they are. And because we're 18 and over, and I'm, by the way, somebody who came to Steamworks Berkeley, I grew up in the Bay Area. I
Yeah,
was going to Steamworks Berkeley when I was 18. Or if you're Latin and under the radar and all that, there's not really any other places for you to go. So we get a
yeah.
lot of those people in for that. We have our fisting nights every couple months with the organization called Mafia, Mid American Fists in Action. That's
Yes, I
actually
love
right.
that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Bear events twice a month. Our trans events for trans men, trans women. The event's called Communion, which some people feel is controversial. That
Yes,
event, Communion, because it's associating so much with bareback and that kind of thing, and all this sort of stuff. And
yes.
and
Well,
I
I
can.
mean, come on, guys, get updated. Update
Well,
yourself with everything that's going on, with all everything at your disposal. It's not 1985. So
I see it differently for people that are, it's funny. Once upon a year, I was talking when we first started Communion, and I'm going to give your listeners a bit of a perspective, and they're going to get. I think you guys are going to get this really quickly.
mm,
When we first started Communion here, I met a customer up in the gym, and he said, "Aren't you worried about people coming in here and having bareback sex and potentially spreading things and all this?" And he said, "Maybe." Well, what if you actually put like a red bracelet around people that are HIV positive that come in so that
ooh,
this is a millennial. This is a millennial, and this was
oh,
a millennial who said this to me. And he said,
oh,
"What if you put this?" And I'm not going to do the accent because he was from a different country, immigrated here.
okay.
But he said, "What if you put a red bracelet or a red band around somebody's arm so that you can tell who is positive and who is negative?"
Ooh.
And I said, sort of like zero sorting, right? And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, so you want to take an entire population of the gay community that already feels isolated, that already feels like they're sort of pariahs,
Of course.
and that they are, they have to, so they, sometimes are sociophobic because they, have to disclose, otherwise they go to jail. And you want to put a red bracelet on them to further stigmatize them
Of
inside
course.
here so that everybody can stay away from them. And he said, I never thought of it like that. And
Oh,
and part of the reason I think your listeners would get this, or watchers, or viewers would get this, is here we are with another group within a group, the HIV positive group. And how do they negotiate meeting somebody who is like-minded, who is also positive, who is not going to throw judgment, who is able to, so maybe they might meet somebody who is positive, or somebody that is serodiscordant, which is magnetic, positive, negative, that is kind of okay with that, because with the advent of Truvada and someone being undetectable, there is very like less than 1% of a chance that you're going to get HIV from condomless sex if you are consistent with your PrEP medication and you are consistent with your HIV retroviral. So if you're
and you're
undetectable,
undetectable.
you cannot give it to
You
somebody because
equals
you're no
you.
longer producing it. And the
Yeah,
same thing. And
yeah.
so those kinds of events, where while they may seem controversial to some, are basically another outlet for a population within a population to feel like they can navigate sex in a natural way. and to feel confident, like the people that they're meeting are not going to judge them for
Yeah.
having sex their own way. And quite frankly, they may meet somebody like-minded that, could go further. So, I mean, I could keep pointing those out over and over, but
Oh my God.
I tend to take it back to public health and, all
No,
that.
no, no, no. Look, I'm HIV positive, so
Yeah,
I'm undetectable. I have a partner for 6 years. He's negative.
cool.
There's no issues around, and we have an open relationship too. There's just
Oh,
no, yeah. If you are informed,
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. If you are informed and you are taking care of your sexual health, whatever that means for your situation, like for me, it's remaining undetectable and staying on my meds. For somebody who's negative, if they're on PrEP, whatever that, or whatever that means for that person, then you know what I mean. Then you go and
Mm-hmm.
you go and you
100%.
you do you. So the communion parties are just, these are people that, like you're saying, they're like-minded people. These are people that are informed, or they're taking care of their sexual health. If you have a problem in those
Don't
spaces,
go.
first of all, don't go. Or also, if you do go, you can ask questions. You can ask people, you know, what you know what their status is, or what their sexual, preferences and their health is, and stuff like that. You can have conversations. You know what I mean? And
Right.
people are too scared to have conversations. So,
I think it's,
um,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will self-disclose that I'm also HIV positive, and I'm OG positive. I've been positive for over 25 years.
oh,
Um,
gee, I like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
25 years.
Over 25 years. Over 25
Woo!
years. Yeah. Yeah.
Daddy.
Since I was 23. So 1997, May 28th, 1997.
Wow.
So
That
way
must have been
back in the
scary
day.
back then, though.
Of course, yeah, it was scary. Well, it's scary for anybody.
Yeah.
When it happens, it's scary for anybody. And
Yeah.
it's scary going into a bathhouse and coming out after being divorced at 42. But where else are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Where else are you
Yeah.
going to negotiate that? And so
Yeah.
you keep going on and on about why we exist and why people think we are not necessarily, relevant. Some of where that conversation comes from, I think, is sort of again, an old set mind thinking, which is, if you've got to evolve
Hmm.
with mindset, you've got to come forward with the times and start
Yeah.
accepting new ideas and new thoughts. Whereas, the pronouns you talked about earlier, they're not a part of the normal vocabulary or lexicon for Gen X and baby boomers, but they better get on board
Yeah.
because the younger generation are interested.
Yeah. Yeah.
This perfect example, Mr.
Yeah.
International Rubber, the rubber event that's happening here next month, is going to have for the first time their first all-inclusive play parties. So they're going to have trans
Mm.
women, trans men, cis women, non-binary, and all that in one party because, rubber tends to skew younger with demographic. And again, their values are much about inclusivity. And so they are approaching it very differently. But that's a huge idea for a big event like Mr. International Rubber to
Yeah.
now. And I'm actually meeting with them later today, but that's a huge step. That tells you right there that community, they have to evolve. If they
Yeah.
want to keep themselves relevant, they're going to have to keep themselves like moving forward. And we're trying with our events with our trans women and trans men, but I'm going to take
Hmm.
a very slow approach
Yeah.
because the community can be very negative, and what people say and what they think are very different.
What did you call
And
them? Oh, Kendras?
yeah, Kendra, yeah, they exist. They 100% do. Yeah. And so, you got to get them ready for it. And
Well, you're doing your best and you're moving in the right direction, but you have to do it
100%.
smart. You have to do it in a smart way, so that,
Everybody's different.
because
Everybody's
not everybody's at the same place right now, right? And
No,
then,
West Coast very different than East Coast, very different than Midwest and all
yeah,
that. Very different, you
yeah,
know. They'll smile to your face in the Midwest and be super sweet and everything, but then they'll say, you know, he's he's kind of not all there, is he? But he seems like a really nice person. I think he's crazy, but he's a nice person.
yeah,
Whereas on the East Coast, they'll say you're fucking crazy. You
yeah.
know that.
You're
You
crazy.
seem like a nice person, but you're crazy.
Yeah,
On the West Coast, they're like, we love you because you're crazy.
yeah,
Keep being crazy.
yeah.
In the
Welcome to the West
Midwest, it's
Coast.
like, in the Midwest, it's like, wow, you're crazy. You can have dinner with us. Enjoy. Let me
Yeah,
get drunk first, and then I'll be okay with it.
yeah. I think Toronto's a bit like that too, but we're not geographically,
Right,
we're not that far apart. So,
right, 100%.
I need to steer this conversation to NABA, the North
Oh,
American Bathhouse Association, which is coming up next
yes,
month. This is going to
yes.
be my first one. I've been
I'm excited.
invited. I'm excited to go. I know you're going to be there, right?
Is your partner going to be there?
He's going to be there too.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Yes. So why don't you tell? Well, so I've never been. So why don't you tell my listeners? They probably have never heard of it either. I'm assuming. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happens there and the
Oh
purpose
God.
the purpose or
Well, I mean,
how did
there's
it
so
come
many
to be? You know what I
things.
mean? Like, give
Well,
us an
I can't
idea.
tell you. Okay, I can't tell you everything about the Bathhouse Conference
No.
from start to finish. But I can tell you sort of what we're planning and what we're excited about.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about renovations. We're going to talk about best ad contests. We're going to talk about there's going to be breakout sessions, brainstorming.
Yeah.
Um, you know, all of the stuff that we want to talk about as an industry. I'm going to be hosting the first ever Poppers Scent contest. So I'm gonna
I
we have
saw
Popper
that. So what does that even mean?
so I thought about that as a fun idea because what's interesting right now is because of the advent of poppers being so big, especially like in the fisting community, everybody's got their own label now. Double Scorpio, LGBT owned.
Okay.
They're a phenomenal brand. We have local brands, VHC, also by a gay man here. We have a few different brands, and what's coming to the conference is Double Scorpio. Club Pittsburgh is doing they do their own scent. And so we're going to do a taste testing, so to speak. So there are going to be at least 3 people with blindfolds on, and we are going to dip a Q-tip into one of the poppers, and they're going to actually do a sniff test. We're going to do one at a time, so the
Yeah.
bottle's not open, but it's supposed to mimic what you would see at a beauty counter, where
Yeah.
you would actually take a small tissue and you'd sniff a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the goal is for them to tell us which scent is the best. So, I mean, there are so many varieties nowadays, and you can get so many different types, and
Okay.
people are coming up with it. And I thought, how cool is it that people are making different kinds? And the one of the host clubs, Kuma,
Yes.
and hi Kong, how you doing? Kuma Sex Club there in Vegas.
Yeah.
We're spotlighting them because he actually makes his own scent as well.
Oh
And
my
so,
God.
yeah. So that's one of the fun things we're doing besides the best ad. I just put something online that I'm expanding the best ad contest we do to content. So maybe you don't want to submit an ad. Maybe you want to submit something you did for online content, just something that you did that brought a lot of followers to your attention.
Yeah.
Submit that. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about branding, marketing, remodels and that kind of thing. Moving the industry forward and having marketing panels, and that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, it's a great. We've got people from the Netherlands. We've got people from around bathhouses from around the country coming, and we're really proud of it. And we're continuing to make sure that the industry knows that we're still around, or that people know we're still around, and that we're
Yeah.
also trying to evolve by learning from each other. And
Yeah.
again, I will say some bathhouses, for example, they're a lot farther ahead than others. Some are
Hmm.
like all inclusive nights. They
Yeah.
have all nights where anybody can come in. And
Yeah.
that again, is something they do, and they have phenomenal success with it. But again, every club is different. And again, they have to approach it differently, but it is the future. Inclusiveness as it pertains to bathhouses and people
Yeah.
coming in is coming whether people like it or not. And if
Yeah.
you are
So
not
get on
on
board.
board with it,
Yeah.
if you're not on board with it, you're going to get left behind
Yeah.
because they're going to see you as, in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just no way around it. Right. I mean, gay marriage, same thing. People had to, what is it? Obama, I evolved on the issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Public opinion. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
I
So
am
yeah.
on. I'm going to be on the marketing panel, so I don't know what I'm
Yes.
gonna talk about that. And I know, so Mr. Pam is on that panel too, and I remember her back from my porn days.
She's phenomenal.
So that's going to be fun. And then for
Hmm.
the ad, this is a bit of a side note, but for the ad, I remember going to Hollywood Spa Ivar, the one that was on Ivar in LA. They had the best ads. I don't know who was doing their ads, and this was like 20 years ago. They had the best ads. So I think it's really cute that you guys are doing something like that, because that actually stuck in my head was the marketing, the ads for that one location. I don't know
That
who was
was
doing it, but yeah.
exactly. And what I want to see is, we've done these the last couple of years. We've had a best ad contest, and we've had people that have won from other places. And some of the ad submissions, when people describe them, you get a deep dive. For example, what a sauna is, for example, in Europe is very different than what a bathhouse is or a sauna is in
Yes,
the United
true.
States. And how they approach it with their marketing and what they do,
Mm,
chocolate nights and that kind of stuff. It's a very
mm,
different social space, and it's
mm.
it's associated very differently than it is here. in the United States. And so when they show their ad, we get a small, like, just window into how they do their marketing just by this one ad, because they describe the actual event that it's based off of. And I thought expanding that to online content could be kind of fun, because
Yeah.
sometimes you're not always pushing online content that's about the club. You're just pushing online content that's fun and interesting and weird, that keeps people engaged with your brand and says, okay, they're still cool.
Yeah.
I will not tell you what I'm bringing, but we're bringing something pretty amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now my expectations are
Oh,
super high.
You're gonna love it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You're gonna love it. I can bring the ad. For example, last year, when somebody said submit the best ad, I didn't want to submit the best ad. I submitted something that I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
My facility, I came up with an idea for a sign in the back of our douche stall on each floor. And it's just a sign that says, don't be a douche, aim for the toilet, love housekeeping.
Yeah.
And it says it there, and I thought, let's put that there. And I
Yeah.
said, let's put something there, because people, when they douche, they just kind of spray whatever. It's like nobody wants to clean that
They
shit
do
up.
make a mess. Yeah.
Literally, they don't want to clean that shit up.
So
my staff, because we have these, douche stations, and we sell the hoses. And so behind those stalls on each floor, it just says, don't be a douche, aim for the toilet, love housekeeping. And people laughed at the conference last year, and they're like, I love that. I'm like, well, because it's not an ad, but it's something unique. And people were like, and my housekeepers loved it, because they were like, absolutely, yes, please.
For sure.
There's no reason. Come on, aim for the toilet. And
that's right.
It's literally at eye level, so you can't miss it when you're going like this.
Right.
If you can't miss it, it's a big ass sign that says to you,
right in your face.
Who you are.
Yeah.
Right. And so a goal, it's harm reduction is non-confrontational, but it's also empathize with the people that got to clean up literally your shit, and do yourself a favor, and don't be an asshole about it. So yeah, that was something that I brought, and this year is something completely different. And this was something I'm not even going to go into it.
Don't even share it with me. Okay.
One of my staff
just
came
tease
up with
me.
Extremely creative. They did something incredibly creative, and I sort of let him go with it. And then we did something crazy recently with it, and people just laughed and they loved it, and they like, this is hilarious, and it's something uniquely only we could have done. So I'm gonna bring that. It's content more than it is an ad. So I'm excited. You can really let your freak flag fly here, which is all sort of fun.
Yeah.
You can sort of let that kind of weird side of you, that sexual side of you, just kind of be out there,
Yeah. And you're not afraid. It's going to be accepted. You're in a safe space, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can still be a freak and care about the community at the same time. That's what my Twitter's like anyway.
Oh, I gotta go check that out now. Oh, okay. Hello. Daddy Nirm, I can't wait to meet you, I guess next month, right?
Yes, at the conference. It's going to be in Vegas, starting on Sunday, October the 15th. You can still register, and please come to the conference. We can't wait to see you. We're so glad you had time to talk to me, and I hope it wasn't boring.
No, my God, never. I could talk about, I don't know about my audience. I could talk about this for days. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the rest of you, I will see you in the next episode of Queerly Us.